KJ Wright from the Seattle Seahawks, and you're watching NorbCam.
This is Walter Jones, Pro Football Hall of Famer, top 100.
Tyler Lockett from the Seattle Seahawks.
DK Metcalf from
Dave Burleson. You're watching NorbCam.
NorbCam. You're watching NorbCam.
What's up, everybody? This is NorbCam coming at you, back with another Bleacher Report live stream. Thanks for joining me. And yes, it's that time of the year. Things are getting interesting as we're getting into the thick of the offseason. And yes, we are going to be talking about who the Seahawks might be interested or should be interested in drafting in 2024. And before I get into that, I just want to remind everybody, please, if you're watching this, would love it if you would follow me here on Bleacher Report, but also on my social medias right down there on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and, well, X, and on Facebook as well. So, where do we begin? It's an exciting time now here as we are getting into the meat of things, and a lot of stuff has happened since the Super Bowl has come to a finale here. Obviously, we all know how that finished up with Kansas City beating the 49ers. Yes. Did have to do a little video about a bet that my 49ers alter ego character had promised to do if the 49ers lost. And so jumping into a cold lake nearby Lake Desire was not fun, but had to do it. You can check that out on YouTube. All right, so where do we find ourselves here? So some things have happened that have been favorable things, really, as far as the Seahawks are concerned. Mainly really benefited all teams. The first thing is we had the release of the new salary cap, and boy, did it blow up this year. The $255.4 million per team. That's over $30 million per team increase, which is great for the Seahawks because the Seahawks were kind of in some financial challenges, really. They were really below the cap. They needed to find some money. So this $30 million definitely buys them some wiggle room. Now, of course, every team in the NFL benefits from this, so it's all going to be kind of relative. But that is good news for the league in general. And I have a feeling that Taylor Swift, whether you like her or not, had something to do with her, helping bring some revenue, television revenue to the NFL, and probably help boost those numbers up a little bit because it is related to all these different aspects of media, income, and all these different things that, the more the fan experience is greater, the more money the teams get. And we do know about the Taylor Swift effect, having brought technically, I think, $133+ million of revenue in one form or the other towards the NFL. So, like it or not, it has had an effect, and certainly the numbers are bigger than it's been in a long time. So, specifically to the Seahawks, interesting things have also happened over the past week or so. Gino Smith, they did some restructuring of his contract and basically converted what was supposed to be a $9.6 million roster bonus. They converted it into a signing bonus, and what that essentially did was it created about $4.8 million in cap space. So that's now $30 million plus an additional 4.8, and the Seahawks are far from done. I'm sure there's going to be some other contracts that have big salary implications that may help wiggle some room here. Would love to find a way to keep Tyler Lockett, who's got really the next one of the largest cap hits on the team. I'm sure he doesn't want to go anywhere else, and I'm sure the Seahawks want to keep him, and I'm sure they'd like to find a way to manage his space and keep him on the team while he's starting to enter into those final years of his career. So hopefully he can finish it off here in Seattle and get that done, because I think he's still a great, fantastic leader and receiver. Adams, a lot of hints pointing that he's likely done in Seattle, despite the fact that he's here for another year, but we'll see. There's a lot of rumors right now and speculation, but that cap hit's going to be there regardless, unfortunately. And so, we're kind of stuck with that contract in that situation, unless they decide to try to keep him and make things work. But right now, it's certainly not looking that favorable for that. So, upcoming dates, just before I get into the draft. So a lot of stuff happening. So this week, it's the NFL Combine. Starts on Thursday, goes through Sunday, and it's unique for the Seahawks in that this is the first time John Schneider will be there alone. Normally, it would be him and Pete Carroll, scouting out the new recruits, but This time, John Schneider's making the trip alone while Coach McDonald gets his team squared away and takes care of business on the home front. So John Schneider, who's now, ever since Pete Carroll was let go from his position with the Seahawks, John Schneider is the guy making all the personnel decisions. They start and end with him. And so really it's kind of his call to decide who they're going to be taking as they scout out the potential draft prospects, which will lead us to what we're about to talk about next. One last thing before getting to the draft, we do have, after the Combine, the next important date on the calendar is going to be free agency. So the free agency period goes crazy in March. It's the football version of March Madness, right? So you got March 5th is the deadline for applying the franchise tag. And Seattle generally doesn't utilize a franchise tag, and I don't see that being any different in this case, in this scenario. That's normally where you want a player that you can't reach a contract with, but you don't want him to go anywhere else, so you tag them, and basically they keep them for the year, and the price becomes the salary of some of the top, I can't remember the exact formula, but top 5 players in that position. They take the average, and that becomes the contract for that 1 year. So I don't think the Seahawks are going to be doing that, but there will be some expensive free agents out there that teams will be tagging them for, keep them around with hopes of eventually getting a long-term deal done. March 11th through 12th is the legal tampering period. Not to say that tampering doesn't happen anyway, but it's the time when teams can start negotiating with potential free agents about players who may be interested in coming to the team or players that they want to get onto the team. So that's the legal tampering, but there's probably conversations happening already. But March 13th, that's the deadline. That's the date when players can sign with new teams. So that's when free agents can. That's when all the contracts will be flying through Twitter and X and all the different social media about this guy signed for this team for 3 years, $325 million. That's all going to be happening on the 13th of this month. So that's going to be a flurry of things. And typically for Seattle, you never see them signing the big names. It's always all these other teams who get the big names. And then you're sitting there wondering, come on, Seattle, do something, do something. We'll see if it's different this year. But there definitely are some players out there, again, with the new coaching regime. We'd love to see some of these players coming over from his former team. If there's some way to make it work, we'd love to see Patrick Queen, the linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens. We'd love to see him in a Seattle uniform reunited with his coach to join the linebacker field here in Seattle. So we'll see if any of that stuff happens. But we're not going to talk about the draft. Now, the draft itself happens in April, the end of April 26th to the 28th, as we all know, and it's anyone's guess what the Seahawks are going to do. They're a tricky one to figure out, right? But I'm here to just talk about what they might do in a hypothetical. We all do our mock drafts. Well, this is my take based on what I think they need, based on not knowing anything about who the free agents are going to get. So knowing that, not having any idea of what free agents are going to pick up before the draft, this is what I would do if this was the order of needs and things that I feel like the Seahawks really desperately need at this time. So the Seahawks, they need defensive tackle, defensive lineman, definitely need linebacking help, edge rusher, offensive lineman, and finally, cornerback safety. That position, to me, is the order the Seahawks have their highest need with this upcoming draft coming up. The order that the Seahawks are drafting in this year, they're going to be the first round at 16. Then they don't have a second round pick. Then they pick at the third round 78. At 81, and by the way, 12th Manimal says in the chat, welcome. We need a new QB. And then Tingler says, if the Bears go QB with their pick, will Fields be a Seahawks target for QB? Boy, isn't that the question? John Schneider was just, I think, quoted in an interview asking, so is Gino Smith and Drew Lock the plans moving forward? And or at least with Gino, is Gino the starter with the Seahawks moving forward? And he said something to the fact of right now he is until he isn't. So basically, no one's going to say anything. No one's going to tip their hat off because, of course, this is all a whole shell game. You're trying to keep your cards close to the vest so nobody knows what you're really planning. So everything I'm going to say here is who knows where they're really going to be when it all comes down to it. But This is my order here. So, yeah, 70. They got pick 78, 81 in the third round. They don't have a second round pick. Pick 119, 151. I think that's the fifth round. And then we get into later rounds, 194 and 233. So 7 picks as of right now is what Seattle's sitting at. Trevor 99 says, I want Dallas Turner. Well, we'll see what you got. Yeah, in the chat, if you're watching this, put your picks in there. You can put your multiple picks or just your number one pick or whatever you want to do. But I'm going to go through my list right now and start with my picks. Going through, as barring any trades, but if Seattle, it is straight up, and this was the needs that we have right now, not paying attention to free agency, this is what I would have. So let's start out with first round pick number 16. Who do we have? The Seahawks select Byron Murphy, defensive tackle from Texas. And he's 6'1", 308 pounds. Hyper-explosive interior defender. He's got lightning quick burst of energy. Great guy in the trenches. He's got twitched up rushing abilities. Agile, allows him to offset blockers effectively. Lateral explosiveness, so he can move left and right, invade gaps. Natural leverage. He gets underneath blocks, holds them strong. Strength, leverage, can take on double teams. Very balanced. Got lots of torque, so he can get the swim moves going. Speed to power. This guy has got speed, but he's got power as well, so he can really push guys back, which is something we desperately need at the defensive tackle spot, especially we don't know what's going to happen with Williams in the free agency here, since he is not officially a guy. And Trevor99 says that guy was my next pick. Run defense, possesses blocking angles, quickly positions himself, and he was the 2023 Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year, always disrupting opponents' offenses. So there you go. That's my first pick, going with Byron Murphy, defensive tackle out of Texas. Everyone and their mother thought we were going to get a tackle last year in Jalen Carter. We shocked the world when they got Witherspoon, but I think this time it just totally makes sense that we go D-tackle. Bad as our defense was last year, we need some interior lineman help, and that would be a great start. And it all starts in the trenches. So that's round 1, pick 16. So we skip round 2, and then we're into round 3. And with pick at 78, the Seahawks select Payton Wilson, linebacker from NC State. I got to shout out Cameron Hughes, who does a lot of collaborations with me on YouTube. He's the one who actually suggested this, and we talked a little bit about linebacker, and he changed my mind, actually, and went with Payton Wilson. 6'4", 234 pounds. He's got good instincts, athletic. This guy's fast, possesses a nonstop motor, impressive range in pursuit, good coverage, which we need, especially against these NFC West teams who like to throw the ball a lot, like the Niners and the Rams. He reads the quarterback's eyes and tightens up these throwing windows. Run defense, got good speed, so he covers a lot of ground sideline to sideline, making him really effective against outside runs, like McCaffrey types that we got to stop. Pass rush. This dude can also rush the passer. Nice cross-chop move and good bend for an off-ball linebacker. So, yeah, this guy played 12 games in 23, 138 tackles, 17.5 tackles for losses, 6 sacks, 3 picks, forced fumble, and several pass deflections. So this guy, keep your eye out for this guy, Payton Wilson. Pretty good. Watch this tape, and man, he was fun to watch. And linebacker is one of those spots that we really had nothing at linebacker. We got Bobby Wagner, we got Jordan Brooks, both free agents. So we couldn't lose them both. I'm hoping they'll take one of them. And if I had to choose between the two, pains me to say it, but man, I think you got to take Jordan Brooks here because Bobby Wagner is just getting long in the tooth. It's a little slower now on pass coverage. I hate to say it because you don't want to talk bad about the guy, but if I had to choose one, I feel like you got to go with the younger guy, and that's why we got to get other guys in there to help replace the void that potentially the departure of Bobby Wagner might leave. All right, so then we continue along in round number 3. Just a few spots later, we've got in round 3, pick number 81, Austin Booker, edge rusher from Kansas, 6'4", 240 pounds. He's kind of experienced, but he's not raw. He's got impressive technical skills for a guy who hasn't been playing that position very much. Fantastic get off. He's got lightning quick bursts from the line of scrimmage, so he often catches the opponents off guard. He's got good long arms, 34-inch arms. Uses it to effectively engage blockers. He's a good run defender. He's got that ability to shed blockers so he can get to the running back. Good speed in pursuit, cuts off rushers and closes in quick. He's got a motor that keeps going, relentless effort, so he's always in the play. And for his size, he demonstrates pretty good flexibility turning the corner. So there you go. Austin Booker in the third round is my pick right there. Needing an edge rusher. Again, I'm heavy on the defense, you guys, in this draft. We see the chat real quick. Tinglish 812. What's the story about Wilson's knee brace? Wilson's knee brace. I'm not sure. I mean, there is a little bit of a injury, concern there, but we're not going to get too caught up in that. Hopefully, that's not going to be. It's so hard to project what these things could be, but. I'm just going to go off of what I know at this point. Let's go here now to round number 4, pick 119. The Seahawks select, in my book, Leaden Robinson, offensive guard, Texas A&M, 6'4", 325 pounds. He's got a quick first step. He's got a really nice fast burst off the ball. Got strength in his core in the lower half. He plays with a strong base, heavy hands, good technique when it comes to pass protection, good solid anchor, good leg drive, and he's got experience both in the zone and gap scheme, so he's versatile either way. He's good in the run game, running north-south. He's got heavy hands. He can shock those linemen, and his pass protection is pretty good too. Technique. He's got good technique, so he anchors well, so he can get pushed off the spot too much. Got to watch that holding though, because if he does get beat, he does have a tendency to grab a little bit here. But I think he's got a good. We got to shore up that, just like we had to shore up the middle of the defensive line. We've got space in there with our guards, and even at center. Still questions to be answered there, so I feel like this would be a good addition to shore up that offensive line for the Seahawks. Again, I'm going heavy trenches on this, and feel like we got to address it on both sides of the ball. So speaking of, we've got round number 5, pick 151. The Seahawks select Jaan Briggs, defensive tackle, Cincinnati, 6'1", 320 pounds. This dude was doing impressive weightlifting stuff like squatting 700 pounds, deadlifting 655. Pretty strong guy. Not the tallest when it comes to D tackles, but man, the guy's strong as an ox, man. Interior dominance. This guy brings a powerful presence inside. He can impact both the run and the pass game. Quickness, agility, can move left and right. Good burst off the line. Understands gap integrity. Knows his assignments. Gap discipline, which sometimes the Seahawks have shown they've been a little sloppy on that this past year. Hand technique. He's got able to shed blockers at the line of scrimmage, and he can rush the passer. Power rusher up the middle, which is, again, something we don't always get from the Seahawks, and would be great to have that. So he brings strength, quickness, and versatility. Jaan Briggs, defensive tackle out of Cincinnati. All right, so let's keep moving along here. How are we doing here on time? I got about 10 minutes left. All right, we're doing just fine. Again, keep your questions, if you have questions or comments, in the chat going. 12th Manimal, I didn't see this one here. It says, I'd like to see Penix Jr. I'll take this time for a second, a little break in the draft action. So, as you can see, I didn't put a quarterback here high in the draft, and it's tough not having a second round pick because you're either going all in the first round or you're dropping to the third and later. And big jump when you go from first round down to third, right? And so quarterbacks like Michael Penix, right? Picking him at 16 seems really early. He seems like he's a second-round type guy. So right now it feels like the Seahawks are sure hinting at Gino definitely being the starter for 2024. Not guaranteed, but it just feels like that's kind of where they're leaning towards. But I could definitely still see them, drafting a quarterback like Penix to study behind Gino. I still have been saying this whole time, I feel like they should draft one. But I feel like if they're going to do it, they're going to have to do some moves. They might have to do some trades or something, move up in the draft, because I don't see them taking him at 16, but maybe they'll move up to try to get into the second round and maybe take a Michael Penix type there if they truly believe that he's the guy to get. So who knows what John Schneider and Coach McDonald are thinking at this point, but I think it seems pretty clear that the signs are on the writings on the wall that Gino, they believe enough in Gino to at least carry the torch for another year. And the question is, do they have the quarterback of the future in this draft class? The question about Justin Fields, who I saw thought Justin Fields earlier, from Tinglish 812. I mean, can't rule that possibility out that they could do a last minute day of draft day trade, right? I mean, we don't know exactly for sure what the Bears are going to do. They might decide to keep him, but what if they don't, right? Then suddenly Fields could be in play and Seattle could be thinking about it. I'm not crazy about Fields. I'm not sold on him being the next best option to where would I rather go Fields or take the chance of the draft of getting one of these new guys from the upcoming crop of quarterbacks coming out. I mean, I feel like I'd almost rather take my chances with Gino starting and a new guy coming up in the ranks. Because as I said before, last year Gino was not bad. He was a pretty good quarterback and actually above average good. Maybe not great, but definitely in that side where he didn't lose games for the Seahawks. The defense is really the reason the Seahawks didn't make the playoffs last year. Gino did fine. And if we had an average defense, we would have certainly been in the playoffs. And if we had an above average defense, we could have gone, deeper rounds for sure. So, I mean, we only missed the playoffs by that much, despite a last place, almost worst defense in the league. And so you pair what we had on offense with just an improved version of what we had. I mean, we're looking at a, pretty damn good team without having to do some major moves on the offensive side. I don't think we're that far off from the offensive side. That's what gets me so excited about this new coordinator with Grubb and what he did with UW, and just the possibility of taking the same tools, the same weapons we have now, and just applying them in a different way with much more pre-snap movement and creativity. I feel like Gino can run with this offense and look like a totally different guy. I'm totally excited about that. We've got so much, so much greatness on the offensive side, and we just need to shore up that offensive line. But really don't have a whole lot to fix on the back end, on the talent side. That's what gets me excited about this. 12th Manimal. Offensive line is very important. Not only do they protect the QB, but they're very important for making blocks and holes for the RBs. And as we know, good point, we've got to run the football. I think watching the playoffs this past year and into the Super Bowl, it just goes to show you have to have a running game in order to be successful. But not just that, you've got to have a defense. Right? The defense truly did win championships in this game. Kansas City's defense was really, even though their offense won the game, the defense was the story. Those guys really came through when it had to, getting sacks when they had to, getting pressures when they had to, forcing the 49ers to not be able to convert when they could have won the game with a conversion. I mean, the defense really won that game for them. And so then that proved throughout the playoffs that you got to have defense. Defense and running game. The passing game's great, but you got to have those other two things for sure. Trevor 99, could they possibly trade back their first pick to get a second? That's a good point too, Trevor. They could trade back if they're targeting a quarterback for sure. They could trade back, definitely. it's just, you just wonder, you'd love to be in that room, right? Seeing that draft board, see who they got up there, who's the priority line. Like if we get to 16 and this guy's there, we're taking it. Or you go, no, we don't need anybody here in the top 32. We want blah, blah, blah at whatever. And we're going to do whatever it takes to move back. And then we'll get another pick along with this one. Oh, it's so much fun. So much fun to see. And half the predictions and mock drafts are always so off, right? Everybody, very few people picked Jalen or picked Devin Witherspoon, except my buddy Cameron Hughes. He was one of the few that when we did a pre-draft prediction, he was one of the few guys when he said, "Yeah, I think they're going to take Devin Witherspoon." We're like, "What? Cornerback? Are you kidding me?" And then, sure enough, that's exactly what they did. Trevor 99, let's see, 12th man. No, I'd rather get a new guy like 2012. I think you're piggyback on what you're talking about. What I was talking about is instead of doing the Justin Fields move. Anyway, so it's very exciting time. All right, let's continue with the draft as we move forward here. The Seahawks at round 6, picking at 194. The Seahawks select Charles Turner, center, LSU, 6'4", 300 pounds. This guy is strong, he's athletic, could definitely fit in the zone scheme. This guy's experienced. He's got the intelligence. He's played primarily center throughout his career at LSU, but he can easily step in at guard if he had to. We've had that happen before where we've had to have guys shift around just to cover for injuries and such. Run blocking, this guy's got a good first step, gets out in front of blockers, especially in zone and power runs, and he's positions himself well, forcing defenders to work through him, talking like holes for K9 to run through, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Pass protection, he's athletic, good lateral movement. He's able to pick up twists and stunts, and he's got good footwork to mirror defenders, keep that pocket clean, and can work combo blocks and engage second-level defenders too as well in the run scheme. So, yes, sir, Charles Turner, LSU, and he comes, from the SEC. Always a good place to pick from. And I just don't know what we got at center right now. We had Evan Brown through most of the year. Big Olu came in on occasion, but we didn't really. I thought they were going to hand the baton over to Big Oluwatimi at some point during the season, but they never did. And I just didn't know, is that just because they didn't need to, or did they not feel like he was ready for it? Either way, if Evan Brown does not come back to Seattle and it's going to be Big Olu or somebody like, Turner, then you're going to need backups. So, again, guys who can play center usually can play and play guard as well. So it's nice to have that interchangeability since, I feel like we've got our tackles, at least are, locked down on both sides. Hopefully they can stay healthy this year. Abe Lucas had a rough year last year with injuries. Charles Cross had some ups and downs, some points where he wasn't the best lineman out there, but I feel like these guys are there for the long haul, and they will continue to get better. But we do have to have depth in case of those injury bugs. So we got one more as we're approaching the end of this live stream. Let's see what the Seahawks would do in round number 7 with pick number 233. The Seahawks select Jarvis Brownley, cornerback from Louisville. 5'10 and 5'8", 183 pounds, 31 3/4 arm length, wingspan of 75 and 7/8 inches. Not the biggest guy in the world. Doesn't fit the usual, Pete Carroll loved those big, long corners, but this isn't the Pete Carroll era anymore. Good lateral movement skills in press coverage, which I like, and I feel like I've been dying to see somebody who can perform in press coverage. Brownlee excels in press coverage, using his hands effectively to maintain position, disrupt receivers downfield. That's what we need to do. Break up guys like Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Knock these guys off their routes. Kansas City did a pretty good job of that during the Super Bowl at times, negating their threat. Deep threat defense, he performs best when not threatened deep, allowing him to break forward quickly from a flat-footed or slow backpedal. So, we're going to have to rely on safety play. This guy's great in terms of, the short to intermediate routes. He's an aggressive run defender. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Witherspoon. He can identify screens and run plays well, and he's very physical when it comes to taking on blocks and tackling. So he's had experience both on the outside and as a slot defender. Good vision, good awareness, good lateral movement skills, and very ultra-aggressive in run defense and quick to recognize what's going on. So Jarvis Brownley from Louisville with the final pick for the Seahawks in the NFL draft. So there you go. Those are just a sample of my picks of guys who, again, not based on the best athlete on the board, but really, for me, drafting based on need, the areas that I think they need to shore up the most. And we'll see if any of these guys actually pop on the radar for the Seahawks. Most likely they're going to shock us. John Snyder seems to have a habit of doing that, coming up with just when you think they're going to zig, he zags and comes up with something we did not expect. But nonetheless, it's going to be interesting, especially at quarterback. The nice thing is that we're not in that desperate position where we need to find the quarterback, where you go, man, we got nothing at quarterback. We got to get somebody. So they're in that position where they could roll with the default, but they could also make a big move for the future. It's the other positions that we really need, linebacker especially, but defensive line, edge rusher, those are the areas that, that's what I really felt they needed to target, and hopefully they do. And we'll see. We got a couple months away yet before the draft kicks in, but there's going to be a lot of speculation, a lot of mock draftery going on as we start to predict what might happen, and expect a lot of questions and not a lot of answers in the next few weeks because no one's going to tell you anything that's worth anything. And if they do tell you something, it's probably not the truth. So I just think it's funny when people continue to ask those questions. Is Gino Smith going to be the quarterback in 2024? Yep, he sure is, which means we're not drafting a quarterback. They're not going to tell you what's going on. So it's going to be a surprise. But look forward to free agency. I mean, that's, we got the combine. Combine is always fun to watch, see where the numbers lay out, see those 40 times and see how they do on all those measurements. But after that, it's going to be free agent frenzy. And who will the Seahawks pick up? Who will they re-sign, if anybody? Who are they going to take back, carry over from Coach McDonald's former team? Who might they bring over here? This is that time where it's like, okay, well, we know what we want, but can you afford it? Got to do any more moves to try to free up more cap space? Who's going to go? Who's going to stay? And what new faces are we going to see on this team? Which will completely alter what they do at the draft, depending on what they do during free agency. So never ends. It's always fun. But man, I haven't been this excited for an upcoming season in a long time. Mostly just because the last time I think I was this excited for a new coach was probably when Holmgren came in the late 90s, because we all knew where he came from and what his pedigree was, having won the Super Bowl with the Packers. And so there was a lot of hype. And I remember being hyped up more than in a long time for a new coach. More so than even when Pete Carroll came here, because I was skeptical. I was like, what? Pete Carroll? I didn't really like him because he was a UW adversary. Came up under questionable circumstances with the whole controversy down at USC. So it wasn't that feeling of, all right, we're getting Pete Carroll, unlike here where Michael McDonald is just like, we were all thrilled from the jump, and we actually got the guy, plus all the assistants that he has brought in. I mean, it's hard not to just raise your bar up here and go, man, this is going to be a great team. We got a long way to go, and I'm sure there's going to be some things that will be the learning curves and growing pains. But the excitement of what could be, and just that it's going to be a different look altogether. We can no longer blame anything and say, well, it's still Pete Carroll's defense. Oh, it's Pete Carroll. He's still kind of overshadowing and running his offense. So you won't have to do that anymore. It's going to be totally new, and we haven't had this in over 14 years. So it's exciting, especially now building this from the ground up with, new coaches, new players to come in, but existing players that we got now who are already really good. So the potential is high. Tanglish, one last comment before we go. I like your thought on the center position. Wouldn't G. Barton out of Duke be a nice addition? I'll have to research him. You know, I'm no expert on college people. I just try to research what I can, and there's so many out there, and it's hard to keep up. And I'm by far any kind of a collegiate expert. But G. Barton, I'll definitely look it up and check it out. And 12th Manimal says, I agree. Peyton made me upset when he came in and axed almost all the Super Bowl vets, but it worked out, and I kind of want to see that happen again. Yeah, I remember when he and Schneider first came in here, they did some record number of transactions, right? It was like 500 moves made, something like that. I mean, they just cleaned house and moved this and that and this and the other, and you know, it wasn't really a great start. I mean, they made the playoffs with a 7-9 record in year one, but then I think the second year, 2011, was also kind of a losing season, another 7-9 type season, and then 2012 is where things really blew up. Had the draft of the decade, striking gold with, you know, players like Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner. So that was, you know, that was just a fun time, and you know, 10 plus years later, here we are again with that potential. But in some ways, I think even better because we don't have to start from the scratch. I don't think we have to do that many moves because there's a lot of stuff in place that's already pretty darn good. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, that is it for this live stream. I appreciate you guys being on here and commenting. And be sure to follow me here on Bleacher Report, but also on my social channels, NorbCam, at NorbCam. Everything is at NorbCam on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, X, as well as on Facebook. I will see you guys there next time. So much happening. Can't wait. It's going to be awesome. All right. Take care, guys, and go Hawks.